I talked to him earlier. Said he's coming.
Oh, you Scarborough, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Hey, Matt.
Oh, there he is. We're like,
We're like, you better be here.
well, I was trying to get that done, but I didn't finish the other one.
It's okay.
You're awesome.
You can also just request if anybody was missed or what.
Just had to sign on the back. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, I got 6 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and call this City Council special meeting to order. Today's October 18th, 2022, 6 p.m. We'll start off with the invocation, please.
Let us pray. Dear Father, who provides all we need, more than we deserve, and everything we have, we ask for your presence here tonight. Please bestow upon us your guidance and wisdom. Calm our minds, lead our actions, and help us to make decisions for our city that continue Richwood on a positive path. Be with our mayor and other leaders, and protect all who are present tonight and in the days to come. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
I did learn it. Yeah. Or I just travel with 6 in my hand.
All right, thank you all for coming out tonight for this special meeting. We're going to start off with the roll call of council members. Let it be known that all members are present. The mayor is currently out, so I'm filling in as Mayor Pro Tem for this evening's special session. And thank you all for coming out. I mean, it's really good to see a packed house on a city council type agenda. Our next meeting is November 14th at 6 p.m. If anybody wishes to attend to discuss other city matters, it'd be great. We love city participation from all parts of the neighborhood and in all parts of the city as well. So thank y'all for coming out. We're going to start off this evening with public comments. I know they're still being signed in right now. I do ask that when you come up for public comments, please state your name, your address that you reside in, and whether if it's an R4, I believe most everybody here is in an R4 residential area. So just please state your name and your address as well, so we can get that on record. That's all I ask. And as soon as they're done, we'll get the sign-in sheet here.
So you can see if you have anybody that wants to speak on anything other than it. We'll
Okay.
have everybody speak on the public
Yep.
hearing, so it's-
So at this time, if anybody wants to speak on a topic beside the the discussion and action item, which is the Appendix B zoning ordinance of the Code of Ordinances, anybody else wanted to speak on anything besides that? Negative? Okay.
we can open a public hearing.
Do it.
I said then we can go ahead.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and open this up for a public hearing regarding possible amendments to Appendix B zoning ordinance of the Code of Ordinances to include but not limited to changes in definitions, district setbacks, violations and penalties, and other zoning regulations regarding R4 rural residential zoning, which in the city of Richwood is Oakwood Shores. It's the only residential neighborhood that's a R4. So we'll go ahead and open this up for, yeah, as soon as we're done signing in, we'll get the first person and start it off.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask a question while we're waiting.
Yeah, go ahead.
So tonight, is this just discussion, or are we gonna possible action towards a
Yeah,
change?
this is just a discussion
Just a discussion
and
tonight.
to kind of feel the air out to see what the consensus is amongst the community and for possible future action items.
Thank you.
I have some questions.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Charles Balzo. I live in Oakwood Shores at 33202. I have a question why when we bought this property, we were told a 15-foot setback was what we had. The city had come out and inspected my property, past my house. I built it in 2016. Everything was legal on the up and up, and now I'm finding out there's a 25-foot setback. And why have you chosen 25 foot as a round number? Because in my experience in construction and engineering and scheduling, 25 foot on each side of a fence opens up a lot of possibilities for pipeline routing, new roads being installed, all kinds of things open up a 50-foot right of way. So why are you all selecting a 25 foot on each side? Because that's our property, we paid for it. Why are you taking more of our property? I'm just...
But the 25 foot is for secondary
It's
structure.
been in place since 2008.
Yeah, that's
Specific
been-
zoning's been,
The 25 foot to my knowledge, and I wasn't here in 2008, nor was probably anybody sitting here on council or in this room, but from my understanding, that 25 foot rule was put in to provide aesthetics of having barns a little bit more set back behind the house to not have the appearance of residential structure, barn, residential structure, barn,
Behind
to
the-
keep the aesthetics
I
a
understand
little bit
behind
more
the house.
behind it.
I have no problem behind the house. I have a problem with being 25 foot from my fence line and 25 foot from the other fence line. It just seems like you're taking a lot more of our property up that we can't use. That you
No,
don't.
your home could still be built at the 15-foot line.
I'm not talking about the house.
That's
Point of
right.
clarification,
Yeah.
I don't think 15 foot is correct either.
it's 10% of your lot
Yeah.
width, not to exceed 25 feet.
See,
That
there
is
you go.
the primary structure setback.
Again, just because it's always been this way doesn't mean it has to be this way.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
that's why we're here
Years and
today, sir.
years.
Yeah.
I've heard that growing up in construction. Well, that's how we always did it on construction before. I'm sorry. It's a new J and A. We do things differently.
And once again, it was done in 2008, before the neighborhood was annexed, probably before you bought your lot
I'm
as
sure.
well.
I'm
So,
sure it was.
I'm
What are
sorry
our
you didn't
options?
see that when you
What are our
first
options to
bought.
change this? What can we do to change
That's what
this?
we're here to discuss tonight.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I think it should be changed. That's my vote.
Okay, thank you.
That's
And
my
What do
sir,
you think it should be changed to? Sir, what do you think it should be changed to?
I didn't catch his last.
I'm with the 10 and 15 foot, at least with myself, the 10% stuff. Properties all change in size.
Correct.
There's 5 acre, 6 acre, 2 acre, 1 acre lots. I think you should go with the footage and let it go at that. The small 1 acre lots, I'm sorry. That's on the river. They're not gonna put a bunch of barns on 1 acre lots. Let's face it, you got a 3 acre lot, you're gonna put a barn on it. You may want to even have some animals. That's
Yeah.
legal.
We're going to go down the list of
Yeah.
public comment of everybody that signed up is going to get to speak. So let's not just stand up and speak, or we'll get through everybody that wants to. And if anybody decides they'd like to speak later, we can go through that.
All right, so we'll start off first, Chris and Taylor Clinton.
Just as you said, Chris and Taylor Clinton, 31511 Bayou Bend.
So, the first thing I kind of wanted to go over is I've been doing a lot of research for the past 4 months regarding this topic. So, I'm by no means indicating that I'm an expert. I do feel that I have a lot of very useful information that could help not just council, but also residents in the community make decisions tonight. So I just kind of wanted to give a brief, maybe like overview type timeline of kind of where things started and then where we're at now. So back in September of 2006, the city of Richwood enacted Ordinance 324, which was a comprehensive zoning plan for the city. When they did that, they created what we know as the R4 district. And within that district, they had all of the setbacks. They had no property actually zoned as an R4 because Oakwood Shores was not actually part of the city yet. From what I understand, the developer approached the city and they apparently came up with an R4 district to put into the city so that when Oakwood Shores was annexed, it would fall within that R4 district. So that was in September of 2006. Then you move forward to November of 2006, and this is when the possible annexation was actually brought to council for them to vote on. They did decide that they were interested in annexing the acreage, and they held 2 public hearings, one in December of 2006, and then another one in January of 2007. After those public hearings, I'm not sure if anyone attended or anything like that, the notes don't show that, but whatever was discussed, they did decide to go ahead and annex what we know now as Oakwood Shores. So Oakwood Shores was officially annexed and zoned as an R4 property in January 22nd of 2007. So at this point, Oakwood Shores is officially part of Richwood, and the city now has, certain services that obtain to that acreage. The deed restrictions for the community and the subdivision plat was not created until April of 2008. So you have over a year and a half of a difference between when the R4 zoning was created and when this subdivision plat was approved and signed off on by City Council acting as the Planning and Zoning Commission. I have a certified copy of the entire subdivision plat from the county clerk. I purchased it a few months ago, so if anyone is interested and would like to come look at the plat, y'all are all more than welcome to. It's a plat of the entire subdivision, and then there's, I think 12 pages behind it. It goes into detail to show each plot. So on this plat and within these deed restrictions that were signed off on by the developer and the plat signed off on by the developer and the city, they all reflect a 15-foot building line for any and all structures and a 100-foot building line for the front of the property. There are some properties that have drainage easements and other things that affect the building lines, but for the most part, like I said, the plat's right over here. We can all come look at it if y'all want to. What is on that plat and what is in the deed restrictions is accurate and has not changed and was signed off on by the city acting as the Planning and Zoning Commission as well as the developer. I have a copy, and so does Kirsten up on the board, of the current zoning ordinance for the city. So it has been 20, how many years has it been? 2022 minus 2006?
14,
14, 15, 16. We'll just round it and say 15 years since this original R4 zone was created. Nothing within the R4 zone has been updated or changed since then. Not one thing regarding R4.
Right.
The only thing that has changed is the plan unit development, which was repealed, but, that had nothing to do with R4.
It didn't
It was
change
the
the
R4, but it
zoning.
didn't change
Correct.
anything at all.
Right.
Yeah, there's been recodifications, but nothing in R4 has changed.
Right, so we have a zoning district that was created before a subdivision plat was created. And that R4 district that was created prior to April of 2008 is still valid with the city and is still being enforced from the city. Fast forward to 2019, and we have where the HOA created a 39 page guideline for new home construction that was built off of the deed restrictions, which then references back to the plat. So everything that you have regarding the HOA and everything that you received when you purchased your property in terms of a survey or a plat, if you go to the county clerk and you get anything on your property, it all points to a 15-foot building line from the side and a 100-foot building line from the front. A few things that I noticed within the guidelines that are created from the HOA is it talks a little bit about how it actually says word for word, the guidelines and deed restrictions were conceived to enhance the long-term value of the physical environment of Oakwood Shores. These guidelines are an aid in the community's goal that each property developed within it contributes to a positive way to the character and overall quality of the community, and in doing so, establishes particular principles and certain standards to be observed by all property owners. going through this, I'm not gonna go through this entire 39-page guideline because there's so much information and so many rules to abide by just to live out here and build out here. I will say that, you know, I've heard that the 25-foot rule was maybe put in place to keep things from looking so wide. Right here in the guidelines on page 7, it specifically says, because this is an acreage lot community, it is the intent of these guidelines to have a width of the houses as wide as possible. Houses. It says, because of the large estate lots and due to the long distances between residences, consideration should be given to site building lines with regard to views and sight lines. Once again, the site building lines on the plat, nothing more than what the plat has put into place. There is an entire section dedicated to the enforcement of certain rules against outbuildings, and that's where they would consider a barn as part of an outbuilding. One thing it does specifically say in here is that an outbuilding are permitted on a lot or a composite building site, provided, however, that the outbuilding is situated in the rear yard. Rear yard means the property no closer to the street than the rear corner of the dwelling, and for the corner lots, it means no closer to the side street than the side corner of the dwelling. So I understand that there's some concern that, you know,
Ms. Clinton, I would like to just point out that we're here to discuss the ordinance issues, not HOA
That's
guidelines.
exactly what we're doing, though. I think
Yeah.
all of this reflects.
Because this
a
is,
lot of
HOA is separate from city ordinance.
I believe everybody probably finds this pretty informal.
Yeah.
Very informal.
We're
I just
getting
want us to
guidance
stay,
from-
stay clear that
It is informal, but we still have to stay on top of it.
we do, and the issues with the HOA not matching with the city is an HOA issue, not, the
Yeah,
city is the
so-
ultimate.
yeah, of course.
Decider.
I just want to point out that there are a lot, the HOA had every intention of protecting and retaining property value and safety concerns. That is why there are so many rules on where you can place things, how they need to look, what standards they need to be built to, so on and so on. I mean, we all have this document because we're all residents of Oakwood Shores, but not everyone on council is a resident of Oakwood Shores. So I just wanted to point out that there is a ginormous document that talks about all kinds of stuff regarding Oakwood Shores development.
And then in regards to the ordinance itself, I mean, for some reason, I mean, we built our barn at 17 and a half feet. Now we're being told to tear it down. When in all reality, and it's not my business to say, hey, you know, your barn's out of compliance, your house out of compliance. There's a million of them out there, and I'm not going to point them all out. It's not my property. It's not my business. Everybody, they bought their own land. They can build what they want. It's not my business. But you know, why are we being held to this standard when 50 before R4 hasn't changed at all?
Yeah, we're here to discuss the ordinance issue, not other
That's
other
in regards
folks.
to the ordinance. Why is it being?
But we're not
Now,
aware of
it
any of
wasn't.
those other instances. I know I've heard that time and time again. Well, they have, but we haven't.
I have.
I mean, I don't-
50 pages right here.
Okay.
Would you like to look through them?
No, I mean, for the
Like I
sake
said,
of
it's not-
conversation right now, we're
It's not my
trying to.
intent to point out anybody else's out of compliance. That's their house.
But the
It's
building
their problem.
permits for the city specifically states accessory buildings 25 feet,
Right
correct?
now, though.
Correct.
R4's been
Well,
there since
I'm just trying to ask a
2006.
question, Mr. Clinton. Does the building permit that was issued to you state to build at 25 feet?
It sure does.
And then what was it built at?
17 and a half feet. And there was a mistake
And that's
on our
why
part
there
when
was
we
a-
owned it.
The stop order placed on the barn.
Okay. I understand that.
Okay.
Okay,
So
I'd
there
like
was
to-
acknowledgement on it. I'm just
I-
trying to
Oh,
let that
I
out.
thought
Maybe
we've-
everybody
we've
here
owned
might not
that
know the whole
mistake.
story.
I'd like to finish, guys,
Thank you.
my speech. So that's kind of the history and a general overview of where we were in 2006, 2008, everything that's kind of led up to where we're at now. I have reached out to quite a bit of people in the neighborhood to get feedback. Some of them are here tonight. I'm not here to speak for anyone on behalf of anyone or anything like that. I just would like to share with you the information that I've received and the feedback that I've received. So I know no one in this neighborhood, so I had to be as resourceful as I possibly could. I tried to find people on Facebook. I tried to find their phone numbers and their emails and this and that. I reached out to quite a bit of people, and I received 70 responses. 67 out of those 70 responses were in favor for having the ordinance changed to where we can maximize the use of our land and develop our property according to the plat and the deed restrictions that were put in place in 2008. I have a list of names and addresses. I have a packet of proof that I talked to these people. If anyone wants to look through it or is curious to read them, I mean, whatever, I have this all here for everyone and anyone to look at. The last thing I wanted to bring up is that I'm not trying to make this tonight about me or about violations or anything, but I find it very concerning and unfair that through my digging and through my records request that I have received over 12 barns that were approved and are out of compliance. And technically, whether they have a certificate of occupancy or not, they are a violation to the ordinance. I don't know what the movement going forward is on that, but the city should be aware that there are a number of current violations in the neighborhood because of this issue. So that's the last thing that I had to state, and thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
All right, next we have Michael and Stephanie Durham.
Good evening, everybody. I'm not going to repeat what Ms. Clinton said, but I think you all know where we're standing here. The past is the past. Stuff needs to be done about it. I know there's some concern about fire, flooding, and wind with these structures. I want to clarify this with you guys, every one of you. I talked to my insurance agent, who is a local resident down here of 30 years of doing insurance. In 30 years, there has not been one claim about an outstructure, outbuilding, garage, shop, in regards to a fire, tearing down another structure, or flooding. Let's start with fire. Most people keep flammable liquids in their attached garage. Am I not correct? It might be a can of gas. It might be anything. A shop will probably have the same thing. A welding machine that stays at a household, 95% of those welders are electric. They do not possess gasoline inside of them, so they will not catch on fire. Let's go to the wind. I think Rory, Melissa, everybody on this board knows that these structures have to be engineered to wind code. Am I not mistaken? I got mine at 150 plus, okay? I took it to the next level so that any object surrounding what I might build one day, could possibly build, would not take out somebody else's structure. I took it to the next level. I'm considerate of my neighbors. As far as flooding, we have a BFE in our neighborhood, and it's probably all of Richwood. If you do not build to that base flood elevation, guess what? You're only harming yourself. You will not harm your neighbors if they build to that BFE. Am I not mistaken? So with that said, we all want to live in peace in Oakwood Shores. We happen to have biolots, which, if you look on this plat, I'd like to use that as an example. They're very, very narrow. They're not your average rest of the neighborhood. We have very, very tiny, narrow lots. We maximize this. We scrape and scrimp to get 2 lots. We put our house on there. I believed the plot to be correct when we bought this place. 7.5 or 15 feet, which would accommodate anything we ever wanted to build. When I asked for permission to build this, I was slapped on the wrist and told no at 25 feet. I followed procedure and asked for a variance at 16.5 feet or 17.5. I don't remember what it was at this point. I was slapped on the wrist again. I feel as if we cannot utilize that property to what we paid for, why are we taxed to the full extent of that entire piece of property? We need to be taxed for what we can utilize. If not, stop taxing us for the whole thing, because our taxes are higher than anybody else. If I would have known the tax rate in Richwood before we bought there, I would have bought somewhere else, a bigger house, a nicer house, offshore boat, whatever. I wanted to live there because it was a nice, quiet neighborhood, and Richwood's a good community. I feel that we should change this in favor of what everybody is here for. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mike.
And just of note as well, the base flood elevation on the plat
It's different, yes.
is
It changed in
different.
2020.
The actually city ordinance actually updated that. We had an ordinance meeting because with the new flood elevations, it states on the plat it has to be, correct me if I'm wrong,
Plus 2.5.
Base flood
two and a
plus
half
2.
feet plus 2.
Yes.
And the HOA came to the city council to say, hey, we're going to have houses out there on ant piles. Can we get it at regular base flood elevation that FEMA put out? So there was an ordinance that's not reflected on the plat that says, hey, the plat says 2.5 feet above, but the city ordinance to build is at base flood elevation from FEMA's guidance. So once again, nobody has a problem building it at, the building permit of base flood elevation 12.5 feet, I believe it is.
12.
12. If not, it would have to be built at 14.5 feet, and all the new homes in the neighborhood would be a lot taller than everybody
Is
else.
that zoning ordinance?
Let me update you on FEMA as well, Mr. Escalante.
Please do.
Each FEMA case for flood,
We need to keep it on the ordinance, not.
this
flooding.
involves that, it's
It's
flooding.
not in the zoning. So.
Yeah, it's gotta stay with the zoning.
It's all part of this. It's all confined in the same jar, maybe.
Base flood elevation isn't addressed in zoning, so that's,
Okay.
Can I just say something? I'm Stephanie.
Kind of a
I'm
moot
supposed
point,
to be up
really.
here. I mean, if that's not part of the ordinance, then why did Mr. Escalante bring that up to us right
Correct.
now? Why can't we not?
That's why I'm trying to bring it up. I'm trying to bring it up
Well,
because
yeah.
he called it as a point of fact for a previous,
Can we not respond
I'm
to
calling it
that?
as a point of fact now. We need to keep the zoning ordinance.
right.
Okay, so then everybody in the room does then?
Yeah.
Well, I was telling you a fact. Regardless or not, this has no relevance, but the insurance said each FEMA case is based on the location. It doesn't matter what your elevation is at this point. That could be enlightening info for you. I hope you find it
Mr.
useful.
Durham, do you have a recommendation for the ordinance specifically?
It's case to case, but 15 foot in some cases or 10 foot off the sidelines is fine with me. It's all based on the lot width and everything, because when I asked for a variance, some lots were 97 feet wide. I was unaware of that. I thought the minimum lot width was 100.
So it's percentage of lot width, are you in agreement that that's an okay way to?
10% is not fine with me, no.
Okay.
Because that puts me at 21 feet, which I asked for a variance at 16.7, I believe. So each
Okay.
lot is case by case like we decided, but I'd say 15 feet would be adequate for almost all cases here.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
For your time, guys.
Real quick before we continue, there's certain laws that govern how we conduct this meeting, and so I don't want to come off as a bad guy, all right? So we have to stay on topic. As soon as we start drifting off topic, we start edging closer to that fine line between what's legally correct and not, and so just try to stick with speaking about the ordinance or anything that relates to the ordinance. I appreciate that, okay?
All right, next I have Mr. John Patterson. You do not wish to address council, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
If I do address it, it is just to say my vote is in support of them. I think it should be changed to 15.
Okay, thank you. Next we have Burke Plesu? Burke? Says you did not wish to address, but I'm sure maybe now you do. There's always a motion brought up in conversation that people like to talk about stuff, so please do. Burke.
So, just a couple of things that,
You say your name?
since I can't, I'm sorry, Burke Gleason, on a property at 31518 Bayou Bend. It's a 1 acre lot. It's 100 feet wide. There is a variance for those lots that the building line is 7.5 feet, not 15, as Richwood would have us believe at this point, right?
It was,
According to my title company, that's legal.
there was a change to the rear.
Sorry?
I believe there was a change to the rear
No,
By you.
7.5 left and right, 100-foot setback from the road,
Let me pull it up.
175 or 200 from the bayou?
It's 100 foot.
100 from each way, okay. So based on the property that I own, I have 87 feet, 85 feet width to build on and 200 foot of depth. The property's 400 feet deep. If you're allowing a 7.5 foot, a 50% variance in your requirement for my building line, why wouldn't you allow a 50% variance in your out structures? Why don't you, obviously these lots are narrow. The HOA requires us to build at 2,200 square feet. Try to find a house plan that allows 2,200 square feet that's not pushing 80 feet wide. Everybody's building wide because the HOA wants everybody to make everything look very grand. A few other things I noted while we were talking. Obviously there's an allowance for variance, but apparently if the developer comes to you, it's easier to get done. Well, we made a variance for flood height, right?
No, it's no variance, we
developer.
changed the ordinance
Okay,
to match the rest of the city.
okay.
That's all we did.
So if the developer changes the and comes back to change these other things, we can do that too?
The
there's no
developers
developer there.
filed for bankruptcy
That's
2 years
fine.
after they sold all the lots.
That was just an agreement as part of annexation,
Sure.
but it's not valid now.
The only other thing I would really note that's somewhat interesting is most people look at HOAs when they buy property, and I read through mine very carefully that they published, and none of the building setbacks that Richwood is saying is absolute were mentioned as absolute. It actually says that you can get variances for other types of structures and things, such as docks and bulkheads. And so my impression was that we would have the ability to work through with the community in some way to make it functional so the community was happy and I could still get what I wanted done.
Yeah, and I feel that's what we're doing this evening,
Yeah.
is we're hearing everybody's concerns, right? So that's the point of
That was it.
democracy.
So just for clarity, are you for 15 foot or against 15 foot?
I think if you're gonna set building lines, then those are building lines.
For
Period.
everything.
Yeah, I mean, you
For
can't,
everything, so
I
you're for
don't
it.
want lines that go like this and, I got aerial restrictions and, it's.
I'm just asking for a yes or no.
Yeah, sorry. So that would be no.
You're against the 15 foot?
He's for his building line. His building line is 7.5.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Or
to
15
be
foot.
clarified, hopefully.
You want it to match your primary structure
I would like my building lines to be my building lines,
for primary, accessory, anything. That's what
to
you
build
mean.
on.
Right.
In any direction.
Right.
any-
They're just wanting clarification on what you mean by that.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Was that, sort of? Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Next, we have Esteban Salinas. Sorry, I
Yeah,
couldn't
they
read
were
it
saying
right.
everything, but I agree with changing it to 15 foot.
All right. Next, we have Lavelle Nate. Can't read this writing here. Nayers. Lavelle at 32102 Amberjack. Going once. Going twice. All right. Next, we have Osvaldo Ibarra.
I am in support of the Clinton family and going with the 15 feet.
Okay. Got you. Next, we have Mr. Jim Novak, says you do not wish to speak. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'd like to say that I support the change to the 15 foot as well.
Okay. Good deal. Next, we have Maria Silva.
33518 Blue Crab Court.
Thank you.
And I, like myself, like when he initially started talking, I think that it's very important we keep our aesthetics of our community and that those buildings are set back to where it's not going to be home, trailer, home, trailer, home. Or, farm. So I think that it's important we keep the aesthetics, and that's why I think everybody showed up, is that we continue to keep the aesthetics of our community, because that was our investment in our homes, and it looks nice, and we want to keep it nice. So I'm not in agreement of us getting any closer with those accessory buildings.
I have a question. Does the city govern aesthetics, or is it the HOA that is more an aesthetic governing?
We govern what's right there.
We govern what's on the
Just
city
what's right
ordinance. As far as what plants or everything, that's color of your home, shingles, that's an HOA's function, not a city's function.
Aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, so aesthetics would fall under the HOA, not a city ordinance?
But
She's
building
just
lines are not
expressing her
aesthetics, building
opinion.
lines are ordinance.
Right.
I just wanted to clarify, I'm not.
Well, so,
A building line is an aesthetic, it's an ordinance that we're looking at. So. All right, Ms. Silva, thank you. Next we have Mr. Gary Ames.
Yeah, I think I put no on there, but.
30, yeah, I'm just asking again. I know
Yeah.
through conversation people sometimes like to.
Right, yeah, I'm in favor of 15 versus 25.
Okay. Next we have Mr. Kyle Purvis.
Here.
Yes, sir.
I have nothing to address the council with, but I support the reduction in the building levels.
Okay. Next we have Mr. Jimmy Silvers.
Again, I'd said no, but since the conversation's gone, I'm at 31410 Bayou Bend. I keep hearing a 15-foot lot line or a build line question. Us being on the river side, I'm not necessarily for a 15-foot setback on our properties, because when I purchased my property, I looked at a plot. My build lines are 7.5 feet. So I would like it just noted that river lots versus side lots versus internal lots, when we start talking about a 10% of my lot's a lot different than 10% somewhere else. So I would say I would like to see it follow the plot plan from when we purchased our property. Because I didn't come to the city for a building permit before I ever bought my property. I went to a real estate agent, looked at the plot plan, looked at the restrictions in the neighborhood. Again, I didn't check the tax rate, but we picked a piece of property, we liked it, we designed a home, we said, look, this property will fit my home, and we designed and built our home based on a plot plan. So had I purchased I can't come to the city and get a building permit before I purchase my property. I have to own the property first. So when I look at a plot plan to build my home, I say, okay, my house is going to go here, my barn's going to go there. Had I come in to get a building permit, luckily my property is all fine. I'm not within any setback restrictions. But had I been, I would have been livid, because I just put out quite a bit of money on architecture. I put out kind of money on a build line. On a property. Now I come to the city to pull a building permit and I can't build what I want to build. I would be livid. So that's where I stand, and I'm all in favor of keeping the build lines as they are here, whether it be accessory or it be main structure, because I can't see the difference aesthetically. And the only thing that I can see for R4 is, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, we're talking about an aesthetic whether the barn is seen behind the house or beside the house. Is that the reason for R4?
Yeah, I don't think the barn will be behind the house.
Also, you have to think about too that most barns are metal, and I don't believe that any metal buildings are allowed in anything other than business in our city, correct? Am I right? It's only commercial is the only place that metal buildings are allowed, I think. So then you...
Like the barn?
Yeah, well, but it's according to these, the only limited, that's metal isn't listed anywhere. The only place that a metal structure is listed.
So you're telling me every barn that's built in Richwood or every...
No, I'm just saying if you're going to apply the same building, like as a main structure, you don't allow barn dominiums.
No,
if you're going to put it directly next to
I understand that, but I'm saying what we're talking about is an aesthetic view. That's what I heard a while ago.
That's what I'm saying. A metal building is aesthetically, like if you're going to put them side by side.
But the reasoning that I heard for R4 was so that the barns were more set behind our main structure, so they're not as visible, correct? I can promise you, you drive down any road in Oakwood Shores, there's not one barn that you cannot see from the road. There's not one. Whether it was a 25-foot setback or a 15 or a 7-foot setback, every barn is still visible There's not one that's hidden.
Yeah. Nobody said it was going to be invisible.
No, I understand, but again, it's not
Make
like
note of
we're
that.
hiding it, it's not hidden behind our homes.
And everything looks fine.
And the
So,
barns look
but-
good and nice, the steps look good.
That's my point completely, that whether it's a 7.5-foot setback line or whether it's a 15-foot setback line, the barns are still visible. So I don't know what other reason that the R4 was put into place. Can somebody tell me why R4 was?
Once again, like we discussed, that was passed in 2006, correct?
Right.
None
No,
of us
I'm
were
just
here.
wondering if anybody knows
No.
what the
We've discussed this,
thought
like,
process
Aesthetics
was.
is our best guess.
Just aesthetics, no other
It's
reason.
our
No,
best guess.
yeah, no safety reasons,
As far
no.
as minutes go, it doesn't.
Okay.
It doesn't tell us, yeah.
That's all I have, but I do vote for a variable building line, whatever the plot says that you can build on your property. I think that should be adequate.
Mayor Pro Tem, can we take a quick recess if we'll be able to find this confirmation quickly before we continue?
Oh, we've been
About the
looking for a
Bayou
year.
sign? Or for what?
About their lot specifically.
There
being
is a
7.5.
change for Bayou lots, and it's notated only in minutes. Taylor, do you have, I think I've sent it to you.
Yes, I have it.
I know we've discussed it and I've pulled it before, but it's not electronic minutes, it's so old, it's in my books, so I had to.
Mr. Novak.
So just real quick on the barns, we moved out there in 2012, and I was on the committee that built all the guidelines as far as the barn structures, what they were going to look like, and the criteria and everything like that. So, which was brought to the city council, and everything was approved as far as aesthetic wise, how they all look. So that was all passed back 2011 before we ever even built. So I don't know. I know you made a comment about the aesthetics of how they look and everything like that.
Yeah, I wondered if maybe that had some play in it too. Just not having them side by side, the houses. If that was the reason why they had the 15 versus 25, but I have no idea. I wasn't here either. So.
Yeah, because there was, Zane Baggett, I know he built his structure, and I know there was a lot of questions that were brought up about his structure.
Mm-hmm.
And him and his wife were part of the team, and I can't, the Johnsons that no longer live out there, but there was, I don't know, probably 5, 6, 7 of us that were on the committee, on the team, that we designed and documented all the guidelines and everything, and took it to the HOA and to the city council, and everything was approved at that time, so.
Okay.
I don't know if that's all still
I haven't seen any of that.
available, or-
Yeah.
Don't know.
Thank you, though. Thank you for the insight, because.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, next we have Jeff Shoemaker says you do not wish to address, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Not putting you on the spot or anything, just want to make sure everybody gets their chance to talk.
Jeff Shoemaker, Redfish Trail. I keep hearing the issue of left to right, and everybody's talking about driving around, looking at all the barns out there. If you drive around, nobody's building front to back completely. There's a lot of land that's not utilized front to back. Every one of these issues that y'all are bringing up, tax rate, setbacks, city ordinances can all be done beforehand versus coming and saying, oh, this should have been, this should have been, this should have been. You don't have to have a building permit to come see the city ordinances. You don't have to live there to pay the property taxes on it. So I'm not in favor of 15-foot setbacks, 25. If you plan properly, you can make the house fit. If the house doesn't fit, maybe that's not the right lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Michael Challenger.
Hello, Mike Challenger, 32726 by Ben. In favor of the 15-foot. I just am more concerned about the trajectory of the neighborhood. I moved here, I'm a new face, obviously, but I did grow up right down the street. But throughout my career, I got an opportunity to live in many different places. And one thing I've noticed about this community is that you guys are blessed. You guys are blessed with the best people, purest hearts. And I just think this is causing division and hate. I think a 15-foot rule would just settle a lot of problems. So, Circle X President.
Thanks, Phil. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Challenger.
All right, next we have Stephanie and Neil Skinner.
Yeah, 3172 Bayou Bend. I would start by saying I am in support of the 15-foot, but I think more importantly, to echo several things that have been said just recently, is that we need to match the HOA requirements to the city requirements. My understanding that the city requirements, that zone is only Oakwood Shores. And we haven't built, we bought to build, and I'm going through that process, and I can tell you, it's difficult because there's huge list of things that you have to do to comply to the HOA. And then you get out on the city site, what are their setbacks? And then to find the setback for the buildings is even further. When this came up, it took me a while to dig this up and figure it out. And I think there are a few other things that don't match between the HOA and the city requirements for that zone. And I think it's important that you guys match those up because you're going to continue to have problems, and you have people that are not in compliance out there now. So I see no reason why your zone shouldn't match the HOA requirements because people have built to that requirement. And so I think maybe it would be in the best interest to match those up and put all this behind us and go forward. So, but I do support the 15.
Thanks, sir. All right, next, Ms. Nicole Remaker? Rumper, sorry. I always mispronounce it.
That's okay. 33211 Amberback. I will just echo everyone who was in favor of the 15-foot rule. We bought our property, we bought our house. We did not build anything on the shore. We bought. We bought the whole property. We didn't just buy a little bit of it. We bought the whole property. We're paying taxes on the whole property. We should be able to utilize as much as we can of it.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Lastly, Oliver Garza? Yes, sir.
And I'm here to support the building lines, the way they were set when we first purchased the property. Hopefully they can respect that. When we bought the property, we purchased the whole neighborhood. So I expect you guys to understand that and go back to our boundaries.
All right, at this time, are there any further public hearing comments? If so, please step forward one at a time.
I just, after hearing people speak, I wanted to point out a few things.
Your name?
Jared Streets, I'm at 31734 Bayou Bend. So I would encourage, I'm in support of reducing the setbacks. I've lived all over the country. I've moved a lot. I've seen 5 foot. I've seen 7 foot. I've seen 10 foot. I've never seen 25 foot. And there's other ways that, I don't know why the zone is the way it is, but she kind of got stopped right in the middle of a really important point. It is an RHOA, you have to be behind the house. You have to be a certain position on the lot so that the house is the focal point. So I think if the point of the zone is to manage aesthetics, it can be done using other verbiage, right? To make sure that nobody pulls a building forward and dwarfs their house. They also have square footage limitations, right? That's a big thing everywhere I've lived. Nobody wants a shop that's bigger than the house. So you can put verbiage that says to make sure you manage that so that you don't get somebody putting a 2,200 square foot house and a 4,500 foot shop next to it. And lastly, and I don't even know, I haven't read this, but a lot of people worry about people running businesses out of a residential area. You can put verbiage in there as well to manage that any outbuildings should only be used for residential purposes. So I just wanted to.
And that's in there, sir.
So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, I just wanted to make one comment.
Your name, sir?
The property on 502 Bayou Bend. The setback was 7.5 feet on the riverside, 7.5 feet. So, I mean, we're utilizing 15 feet now because we're building a house out there. But, I can see if they're less than 100 feet wide in some cases. If you put 25 feet on each side, you don't have very much room to build a house or anything else, actually, for that matter, And then and right now, according to what other people are saying, is when we went out, we looked at the plot. That's the plot that's in the county. That's what's registered with the county, and we saw the setbacks. I mean, we had no idea that the city would say, "Oh no, it's not right." we've got these setbacks, and your plot that's in the county's, vault up there that everybody goes by is not right. So I think, I guess the short of it is I support the variable, setback, 7.5 foot for the bayou lots because it's so small, and 15 everywhere else.
And your name again, sir?
I'm sorry, my name is Ed Potterny. I didn't sign it.
Yeah, I know.
I just need it for my notes.
Huh?
I just need it for my notes.
Okay,
Your name.
Podhirny.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, ma'am?
Hi, Cindy Moriarty. Sorry, I didn't sign it either. I didn't know that I was going to need to. We are not, at 31610 Bayou Bend, on the Bayou side, we are not in favor of changing the regulations as is and continuing with the process and protocol of applying for variances as needed.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Eric Foger, 32419 Redfish Trail. So I was shocked to hear actually that there was 12 structures in the neighborhood that are actually in violation. That was news to me. But
We haven't validated if they're in violation. We don't know if there's been variances placed in with previous owners.
Understood.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
At first I heard it was 50, now it's 12, so.
At the same time, aesthetically looking at it as a neighbor, someone vested in that community, I don't see anything that looks bad to me, okay? I mean, I think everything out there looks tasteful. I don't know the Clintons, okay? The first time I've heard y'all speak, I know you've contacted my wife for information and a dialogue with her. But your all's house is beautiful. That barn that you got set up, that's a beautiful property. I'd be proud as a neighbor to have someone like that right there next to me.
Thank you.
And so my vote is, let's change it. Let's make this thing flexible. Let's have a variance process that works as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foger.
I want to speak up as well. My name is James Weagle. This is my wife Connie. We're at 32026 Bayou Bend. We're actually on the Bayou side ourselves, and we would like to reduce the setbacks as well.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Ryan Gerachek, 32027 Bayou Bend. Couldn't afford to be on the water side, but but I'm all for reducing the requirements to the lot lines myself.
Yeah. Now, the lot lines, I believe this is for accessory structures, secondary structures.
Yes, for the outbuildings.
So I keep hearing a lot of saying for residential, but this is to change the verbiage on paragraph E3 of 25 foot for main building and or accessory buildings.
Right.
That's the point of the matter.
Sorry.
No, that 3 is the rear. Well, I believe 2 should be.
Well,
2, sorry. Yeah,
We're
2.
discussing
Yeah,
the
yeah,
side.
2.
Yeah.
Sorry.
This side.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the primary, I think we're on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just showing them.
Thank you, Ryan.
Uses when he was saying business uses.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I'm Pete Sperrio, and my wife Marilyn, we live at 32634 Bayou Bend, and we have a 1 acre lot. And I'm definitely in favor of the existing property lines like they're set up now at 7.5 and 15 feet.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Calvin Stewart. I live at 33219 Amberjack. And I also am in favor of 7.5 to 15. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for this public hearing comments?
Yeah,
Going once.
council member comments listed later.
Yeah. Yep.
Whenever.
So we're gonna just go in order: city manager report, then council member.
Oh, no, if you're going to speak on this.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
any comments from council members then? Mike.
I would just like to say I really appreciate all the turnout tonight. I think it's an important issue, and I think everybody's opinions counts, and I think they stand for themselves. But anyway, thanks for coming out tonight. We're trying to drive the city in a good direction, and I think we're doing it, and I think meetings like this help. Thank you.
Strawn?
Yeah, it's same. It helps to see how the community feels. I think this has been really helpful. Thank you all for coming out.
So, the same, I'll reiterate, the turnout is great. Like Rory said, our next council meeting, we'd love to see the chairs filled as well. And if you can't, be on the lookout. Just last meeting, we had to approve 2 special committees, charter review, and seeing if there's anyone interested in, separating council and planning and zoning. So, please volunteer where you can. With that, in discussion of this, I've approved 2 variances in hopes to pass them, only because I'm in favor of changing the ordinance itself. I don't believe in the variances anymore. You can look when I first started on council, they would come, I'd look at them as a case by case, and then I realized the problem that would cause is you're always looking at one by one, and you give something to somebody, and the case may be just a little bit different the next time you give it different. So, because I'm in favor of this ordinance changing, I, several months ago, had made comments that I would wish to see it match the primary structure, as I think that helps to alleviate complexity, as many differences as possible. If we can streamline those, I think that helps everyone out. It's interesting to hear the responses tonight that, maybe our current ordinance at 10% of the lot width may not be appropriate either. We may need to adjust that and go to the 7.5 and 15-foot plot line distances as listed by the county and on the plat. The only other comments I would make is, the HOA is there for a reason. Hopefully everybody knows they bought into an HOA, and that HOA, in my understanding, is there to serve a good purpose and keep aesthetics in line, to keep standards of the community. And I do believe that's their job. I believe others have made the comments that a lot of comments have been made, in fact, of how well things do look out there. And so that is a testament to what the HOA and the standards that have been there. With that, I would say, though, the city council, in my opinion, it is not our job to have a concern of what requirements an HOA is going to have. We should set what we feel is appropriate and least restrictive for that district we're looking at. There's a lot of statements that this is the only R4 district HOA, or Oakwood Shores, and that is correct right now. I don't know what's going to happen 5 years from now. I don't know what's going to happen from 10 years from now. What a mess when we open a brand new R4, if we ever do, and they're faced with the same, 25-foot encroachments. I think city council, it's our job, and government in general, to be as least restrictive as possible, to maintain peace, to maintain safety between neighbors and within the public. And so I do think we can do that with a much reduced accessory structure and primary structure setback line. So that's it. Thank you.
I had a question for maybe legal or, so today I've been just kind of tallying it up. We have about 30 for and against, about 30 people that have reached out. There's about 325 properties out there. Is there any, it's great to have a packed house, but is there any way to get a survey or something like that from?
Everyone got the same letter.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
Yeah, I would imagine.
All of us in the neighborhood have already signed a document for the 15-foot rule. I'd just like to point that out. Didn't we? When we signed for the HOA, it was one of the rules in the HOA. So I understand that there's a lot of people that aren't here, but whenever we
I just meant from the city standpoint. I just meant from the city standpoint to try to get as many people as we
I can open
could.
up a survey if that's what council would like.
No, I just was curious, just a question. Whenever you were talking, it made me think about, the residents as a whole. Go ahead, keep going.
Oh, that's all I had. All right. Well, move to
But like you
Mr.
said, everyone got the same letter, so if it
Yep.
was important to people,
Right.
they would have came and made their statement here, or would have called the
Yep.
city council, or, called the city hall and would have reported, hey, this is how I would vote. So I
True.
would think majority of how it was voted in here is what
Is how they're-
majority of Oakwood Shores
Okay.
feel.
Yeah, and
Just
there's
a-
also
just
some
a
other
small-
letters that were mailed in as well for residents that weren't able to attend
Right.
this evening as well. Mr. Langford?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody for showing up tonight. And for those that couldn't show up, their correspondence to us on the matter. We're elected officials. We're here to represent our community and those that live here. Sometimes it becomes a little bit difficult and a guessing game when we don't have the feedback from the community. So really thank all of you for coming out tonight and sharing your opinions on the matter. That's really all I have. It's given us a lot to chew on. So thank you.
Thank you. Lastly, I'll wrap it up as Mayor Pro Tem and Council Member Position 4. One of the key things that I think that we miss when we talk about this is the word rural. R4 Rural Residential District. And rural meaning we have open spaces in Oakwood Shores. I'm a resident of Oakwood Shores as well. I live 2918 Oakwood Shores Drive. I'm on the HOA. I've been out there since 2013. I've seen the community grow and prosper. I've seen the community at its lowest points as well, if you can recall that a couple years ago. But I think that's one of the key things we need to remember. Rural, as Oakwood Shores is, there is no other rural residential area close to here. Could be Bar X. I was going to buy a house in Bar X. Did I want to flood out 3 times? No. I picked Oakwood Shores because it was a nice community with deer. I love all the deer that come to my backyard. It's open, it's spacious. I didn't want to move to Northwood and have my next door neighbor's shower window right from my view, or open my door and see my neighbor's garage. I bought in Oakwood Shores because it's spacious. And I can walk outside and throw a football and not hit my neighbor. Or I can hit a chip at golf balls in my backyard and not hit my neighbor. So I think that's one of the things that I feel is kind of left out is the word rural. Not residential, it's a rural area. Not an urban, rural. That's why we have all the animals out there and it's very country-like. You know, I heard stuff about taxes and just, you know, the city does do taxes, but it's our county that gives us most of our taxes out there and we all pay them, especially in Oakwood Shores. Building permits, the city, we had last council session, we had the contractor that does all of our inspections for the city of Richwood. You know, and she reiterated a city ordinance is, they go by the most restrictive thing. So whether it's a city ordinance or on a plat, they abide by the most restrictive. Unfortunately, in 2006, an ordinance was passed by this developer that has filed for bankruptcy since they sold out the neighborhood. That apparently it seems like they just use a blanket developer master plan. All right, this is what it says. We're going to put Oakwood Shores. You can look them up right now. They're selling lots in, I think, Canyon Lake and all kinds of places. They use the same generic master development plan with the same setbacks and everything.
But the city endorsed these ones out right here
Correct.
several times over, even the new replats for
Correct.
the Durhams, for instance, 2 years ago.
But
City
it
endorsed
also
that.
says unless otherwise noted.
Yep.
The plat.
So there's some legal verbiage behind there that goes.
Yes, sir, I understand.
So, and because of this instance that we're in today, there's been after action items that the city has taken. For secondary structures now, there has to be a form survey that is going to cost homeowners more money now. Normally you only need a form survey when you build your home. That's right before they pour concrete to make sure it's set in the spot that you said it's going to be set. Because of this instance, now the city is going to require form surveys for structures that are over a certain square footage. And you can correct me, what is it, 1,000 square feet?
Larger than a car garage, like single car garage.
So to ensure that we're not put in this predicament again, to ensure that people place their barns or secondary structures where they say they're going to place them, now incurs more cost for any future potential homeowner. Because that had to have a form survey. That could cost anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000. You have to have a surveyor come out, validate that's where it's going to be. They take measurements, all that, give the green light, then the building permit proceeds. The city's also hired a code enforcement officer that should start here within soon, which will be validating these codes and ordinances that are out of compliance of the 12 to 50 barns that I'm hearing about. So the city is taking action. Is the city perfect? No. I'm glad to see a lot of people out here from Oakwood Shores. Last time we saw this many people, it was because of our roads. And there's some people in this room that are still here that we're able to change those roads and get funding from the interlocal agreement to change that. Some of y'all are direct recipients of that right now on Blue Marlin. Heaven forbid, that road's been terrible since I've lived out there in 2013. So same thing with water. We had issues with water where people were getting sick because we didn't have proper chlorination. Now we have a new water tank with water pressure being put out there. I mean, it's a community involvement. Internet. There's some folks here in this room that for the past 3 years have been pulling tooth and nail with Comcast. We finally got internet out there. How many of y'all have internet? Xfinity, high-speed internet. It's amazing. I know what Netflix is now. So that's good. It's my member comments.
I got you.
So what I like to say is we live in a rural area. I'm all for variances. I'm all for variances, you know, when you ask permission to do stuff and it's there, not after the fact and knowingly. But, you know, we listen to everybody and we listen to what people have to say. And I think it's a great thing. That's why we live in America. That's all I have. Thanks. Next, we'll move on to the city manager's report. Nothing? Topic 8, council member comments, reports. Anything to report, Mike?
No change since last meeting.
Okay. Ms. Strong? Mr. Yarborough?
No.
Nothing for mine. Nothing on the mayor's report. I know our mayor called in sick today, had a procedure done, so I wish him well and speedy recovery so he can be here for next time. Any future agenda items?
So is this where we need to suggest
If you would like me
the
to draft
draft,
something, please.
or can we? Okay,
this is just to
if you want this
bring
to
it
be
on
on the item.
agenda item.
Or let me know what you want to see. I can.
Can we wordsmith it during that action item, that agenda item on the council next session? And we can wordsmith back and forth, and then somebody can make a motion if they so choose.
You can do that in your discussion portion.
Okay.
Sure. You can
Agreed.
bring
Can
a
we
general,
also submit-
a general framework. If we kind of know where you want to go, we can put in a general framework. And if you want to change the specifics at that time, then you can vote on that as is.
Yeah, my request is like just to give anybody that wants to attend and hear on it as much time as possible to read any proposed amendments. If you have anything that I can include in the packet that you wish to see, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be acted upon or passed. That way we can get it out to the public as soon as possible, because even tonight I was called many times asking if I have anything to give them but I didn't. That's why I'm glad everybody's spoken.
Okay, I'll submit
Just
what
to
I
put
would
in the
like to
packet,
see, and then.
if you have it at that time. If you don't, it's not required.
Okay.
Any future agenda items? All right, well, if there's no other further public comments or future agenda items.
I do have a question.
Okay.
Just not knowing how city council runs and how this process, y'all heard from us, you heard from the public, we're here to talk about this. What is the procedure from now? Can you fill me in or us in on how this is going to work, what happens, how is it brought to a vote? Educate me on what the process is.
This will be brought back as an agenda item. In general terms, these are the specifics, X amount of feet, whatever the case may be. At that time, they'll have discussion on that, and they can take it to vote right then. Because this is the public hearing portion, because this is a zoning change, not just an ordinance change. So this is required to do that. So
the next council meeting.
I plan to present an ordinance, an action item for amending an ordinance to zoning.
Okay,
in
and that would happen
November.
at next council meeting?
Yep, November 14th.
So there will be more discussion at that time?
Correct.
And then at that time, it can be the motion forwarded or
to change.
moved and then seconded and voted.
That's correct.
If then that's what we're trying to accomplish.
And we do that twice. We do that in the planning and zoning meeting, and then immediately we'll have to do the same thing
at the council
council to confirm.
Planning and zoning will make a recommendation, but we can do it as another joint public hearing, since you're the same board.
So the only people that are voting on it will be the council?
Yes.
Right.
Council is planning and zoning and council, yes.
Okay. But y'all are taking in our input. That's
Correct.
already
So
before.
by law, we're required to hold public hearing anytime we do entertain any zoning changes. We're required to hold this. send letters to everybody that it affects, give them opportunity to appear, put it in the newspaper, and then bring it back at a later meeting to then act upon. So it gives everybody time to take into what the public wants and what they think, and then come back and take action.
Thank you for the purpose.
And it'll be another posting. I'll put it in the paper again. You'll probably get letters in the mail again. No one's got violations. Everybody thought I was violating them.
Code enforcement hasn't started working yet.
So, yeah, no, not yet.
That's good.
So you'll get letters again to let you know. It'll be soon too, because we have to get it out so far in advance.
Good question.
So if this were to go to vote today, based off what you've heard and your feedback, how would the outcome look?
We can't. We're not on a discussion. We can't talk about that.
Nice try, Mike.
But you're welcome to privately email anybody you'd like.
Yeah, good try.
Gotcha.
Is the zoning and planning committee different than this general?
It's
meeting
not.
that we
I don't
have?
have, if I had volunteers to do it, we would. I've
that's
been
what we
sitting on
had,
3
yeah.
applications for probably a year. And I need at least 5 that
That's
are
why
not involved
we're
anywhere
happy to
else.
see all these folks here. We had so many vacancies to fill last
So if anybody'd like an
session.
application, see me.
We'll get you 2 more pretty quick.
Did you bring you some blank applications?
I
You
have
said-
plenty. They're all in the lobby. I have plenty, really.
Yes, sir.
I have a question about the, you brought up the elevation. You know, I got a letter from the HOA because we're fixing to build out, we're in the process of building out there. It said that the city changed their requirement to be a maximum 13 feet for the foundation grade would be maximum 13 feet. Is it, and you had mentioned earlier that was to keep people from, you know, building on anthills and whatnot.
Yeah, I would defer just for sake of
I'll
this.
say, get with me after the
that we'll
meeting and I
get
can
with-
go over that with you, but it's not on the agenda, so legally we can't talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No problem.
But I'm happy to clear it up after.
All right, well, if that's all, time is now 7:10. I'll call this meeting to adjournment.
Thank you.
Yeah.